Hey, David Brewster with another Three for All, and this is three Nuno Bettencourt licks from 1986. And I found this live solo on YouTube, and it's actually before Extreme even had a record deal, so this is early in Nuno's career. And it's a little grainy, kind of hard to see. You know, it looks like it was filmed with like a camcorder in the crowd. But you can make out the solo, and it's crazy. I mean, he plays the Andy Griffith theme. There's a whole bunch of like classical themes and melodies and just some random kind of TV show themes and stuff too. But then in the solo, it's kind of interesting to look, at what he was playing at that time before he'd really, recorded the original, like the debut, Extreme album. And there's a little piece of the solo he put on Mother Don't Want to Go to School Today, which I think that's, a brilliant guitar solo. And there's actually a lick that appears in that intro solo in this solo, which was a couple years, before that album was even, released. So I think it's cool to, look at solos like this early in the career of certain guitarists, and you can see those early signs of things that they would do later in their career. Riffs and licks and just different ideas on the guitar. So Extreme's from Boston, so I'm guessing, that was probably filmed at a club, somewhere in Boston back in the day, and I didn't really catch, like any details. I didn't see anything in the description, that gave, like the club name or the exact date. But even though the video's kind of grainy and you can see Nuno. I mean, it's not like it's there's no visual, but it is kind of bad quality simply because it's so old. But you can distinctly hear that it's him at certain times. Like I said, you can kind of catch a lick that he played in the Mother solo, and just some of the phrases and stuff. It's distinctly Nuno, even though it's kind of earlier than most people, really are familiar or recognize, his style. But it's like, okay, I can kind of hear, where he went with that. All right, so the solo itself is pretty random because he just jumps all over the place. Like I said earlier, I mean, he ends up playing like the theme from Andy Griffith and a bunch of other stuff just randomly. But it does kind of loosely revolve around A minor. He kind of flirts with harmonic minor a few times, kind of bringing in like, E7 or dominant seventh, tonalities in E, which is pulling toward, A harmonic minor. Because overall, it is kind of in the key of A minor, even though he does kind of wander around a lot through the solo. All right, so the first lick here is really interesting because he's bending this, high A note here on the high E string, and then answers it with the octave, an A below that A note. And then he does the same thing on the B and the D strings. He bends an E a whole step up and down, and then targets, an E octave, an octave below. And then he does kind of a raked bend into a D, bends that up, and then he kind of does this little melodic move from C sharp to D to G. And then he does this kind of blurry sounding kind of wide interval run right here, based around, well, it's loosely based around, like an A7 tonality. And then he answers it with like this little kind of piece of a D minor melody, really, before he finally ends on E, which is kind of giving you that harmonic minor push like I was talking about earlier. So it's a really interesting lick with these three little areas. It sounds like this. So it's really cool. You got the octave bending like I was talking about. And then he's doing this, kind of hang on the D right there, bending it up to E. And then he catches that C sharp to D to G melody. And then he uses that G to kind of spring into this stretchy lick. Really cool. And then he does this little kind of D minor arpeggio. And he definitely kind of ends on that E like a pinch in the solo. Yeah, the next phrase is basically coming out of A major pentatonic, and he's doing some string skipping, and it's a really unusual sequence of notes. I like it. And you can see there, it's kind of a quick lick. I mean, it's just 2.5 seconds long or something like that. But slowly, I just like the way that's phrased. It has a cool, ring to it, and it kind of catches your attention and catches your ear. Really cool lick. Okay, the last lick here is terrifying. This is the lick that you hear in his Mother solo, but this, of course, was performed and demonstrated years before that. But it's the same lick, and it's stretchy, and it's a lot of skipping through arpeggios, which is really cool. And I'm a big fan of this sound. So it starts off with this stretchy, A minor shape right here. So I'm going to walk through it slowly and then I'll shred it. That shape's really interesting because you have to use your middle finger on the G string to grab that A note. And then when it moves back and you've got the G sharp right here, G sharp here, and the B, it just fits, like your hand. So that's a really interesting, way to play those arpeggios. And then the diminished work. And there's so many different ways to, play with that. And mainly because that's so terrifying. Let me run through that one more time, just a little bit slower, because there is a lot going on in that lick. So, do the A minor skip. And then the diminished work, I mean, you can hear Yngwie and a whole bunch of guitarists doing this, but we're just, jumping between the high E and the G with this little minor third shape. And then there I'm just kind of finding a place to end on that A note. But really cool phrase though, for sure. It's a workout and it's a big stretch and a great, challenge for the pinky. But I really like the sound of that lick. Yeah, one more time, just to impress the neighbors. All right, well, that's going to wrap up this look at 3 licks from Nuno Bettencourt way back in 1986. And, leave some feedback and some comments. Please subscribe to Late Night Lessons, and I'll be back with some more chord play and scales and tails and three for all before you know it. Thank you.